The Wahoo KICKR Gradient Simulator is now shipping and people are enjoying the new ups and downs that it brings. I'll link below to my full video on the unboxing, setup and ride review of this unit, but today what I'm going to cover is the specifics of Zwift and how it relates to the slider setting or the trainer difficulty setting on Zwift and what it's all about with the KICKR Climb. Within Zwift itself, there's absolutely no configuration that you need to do at all. It's transparent to the game. Once you've paired the Wahoo KICKR Climb to your Wahoo KICKR, it's good to go. What you'll see on screen is what this thing will replicate. So going up an 8% grade, it'll rise to, hang on, I'll actually show you. It'll rise up to 8% grade. If you're going down an 8% grade, well, technically Zwift halves the descent, so you'll be going down a 4% grade. But that aside, 8% is 8%, or 10%, 10%, or if you're going up the new Alpe Zwift, 13% feels pretty hard. And that's somewhere up about there. Okay, now onto the difficulty setting and how that relates to how this thing operates within Zwift itself. So within the settings here, if you have a smart trainer, you'll have what's called a trainer difficulty slider. Now this changes effectively the gradient that's being simulated back here by the smart trainer itself. For example, here on the screen, I have my trainer difficulty set to 80%. So if I'm going up a 10% climb, effectively all I'm feeling is 8%. Makes life a little bit more tolerable, I guess, when things get super steep. If you have it set to 100%, everything's 100%. What you see on screen is what's being replicated with your smart trainer and also with the KICKR Climb. As the KICKR Climb takes the gradient commands from the trainer directly, what happens here? In this scenario here where I have it set to 80%, the KICKR Climb will only simulate 80% of what I'm seeing on screen. So that 10% climb only feels like 8% with resistance and only goes up to 8% with the KICKR Climb. Same goes for 50% there. A 10% climb will only become a 5% climb. And same goes all the way through to off, which is replicating 0%. Now I have been caught out here with having everything set up perfectly and the KICKR Climb not changing gradient at all. I spent a while debugging that. The reason was it wasn't going up and down is because the trainer difficulty was set to 0 and it was replicating a 0% grade. It was doing exactly what it was meant to be doing. A question that's come up in the Zwift community is, what happens if you want to ride your trainer at say 80% or 50% with the slider, but you still want to replicate that full gradient simulation with the KICKR Climb? Zwift community member Motti Pikelny, apologies if I've slaughtered your last name there Motti, has come up with a great solution that allows us to get the full maximum gradient simulation at the front, but allows us to choose what gradient simulation or what resistance simulation happens with our smart trainers and that slider here. I'll link below to Motti's article over on Zwift Insider which explains this in full detail, but I'll run through the summary here today. I think it's brilliant and I want to share it with everyone here. The detail of Motti's workaround is to configure a virtual wheelbase, tricking this unit into thinking you've got a bike that is 5 meters longer than what it really is. And that way, the climb itself moves a lot further and simulates true gradient, as long as you get the math done right. So the mathematics behind this on mine and how to configure it is, my bike itself has a wheelbase of 1005 millimeters. And by dividing that number by 0.8, so 80% of what my slider is set to, I get a number here of 1256.25, so 1256 millimeters, using the Wahoo Fitness app, setting my wheelbase on my KICKR Climb to 1256 will now give me the full front end simulation of what I'm seeing on screen, 10%, 10%, 13%, 13%, but at the back here, 10% is only going to be 8. So a little bit easier on the legs, but full gradient simulation going up and down. That's a super cool workaround and works brilliantly. Zwift community member Chad McNeese has put together all the mathematics describing exactly what goes on here with this virtual wheelbase change and how it affects the KICKR Climb and why this solution actually works. The 3 examples illustrated by Chad here are, number 1, with trainer difficulty slider set to 100%, where the KICKR Climb simulates up to 20% gradient. The second example shows the trainer slider set to 20% on Zwift, and in that instance, the KICKR Climb will only go to up to 4% gradient, so not much at all. And the third example is the solution we're talking about today, where the trainer difficulty is still set to 20% or not 100%, and you still get the maximum climb simulation. So this example here is where the trainer is set to difficulty of only 20% on the slider within Zwift, but using that mathematics, which is a 1,000mm wheelbase divided by 0.2, gives us an effective wheelbase, or a virtual wheelbase, of 5,000mm. So effectively the climb thinks it's out here and moves up and down as such, but really, physically, the climb is located back here and moves up and down the full range that we see on the screen, so the full 20%. So this one equals this one. So there we have it, some brilliant solutions there from the Zwift community, both from Modi and Chad, about how we can get this working exactly how we want. A few disclaimers on this one. This is related to Zwift and how Zwift interacts with the Kickr Climb. If you were to use another software platform with that virtual wheelbase, then things are going to get a little bit wonky, so be aware of that. If you do change the slider back to 50%, maybe 20%, as we saw in Chad's example there, and then move it up to 100, make sure you change your wheelbase in the Wahoo Fitness app, just so you get that gradient simulation spot on. So there it is, some great work there by Chad and Modi from the Zwift community about setting up things indoors how we want, and all the mathematics is done for us. Pretty much sounds like my school days. Okay, thanks a lot guys. Remember to hit subscribe, lots more to come in the future on Zwift, Zwift tips, Zwift hacks, and cool things like this. Thanks for watching.